Hi, I'm Professor Sampson. I assume you're watching this video because you're in one of my classes, but if you're in any BYU class, I'm sure you'll benefit from this video. I want to talk a little bit about having a successful and happy semester. If you're in one of my classes, I really want you to have a great semester and enjoy it and get a lot of value out of it. So let's talk a little bit first about what the goal is. What is our goal here at BYU? What is our goal in a class? What is our goal in life? Well, I'm going to give you a little sneak preview from Chapter 4 of the textbook we have for my course. Chapter 4 is titled Identifying the Value Proposition. And a few of the principles that come out in that chapter include that value is the goal of all organizations. Also, value relates to promoting individual happiness and well-being. We seek values so that we can be happier, that we can have more joy, and we can have more well-being. Some things promote happiness. That's great. Other things do not promote happiness, unfortunately, and sometimes, believe it or not, the difference is not always clear. For example, we think about things of work versus leisure. And there's a common paradigm that people have, which is that, work can be drudgery and something we have to just endure so that we can actually have the time for leisure. That leisure is really what the goal is. But scientific research has shown otherwise. It is shown that there's tremendous value in work. For example, from an article by Frey and Stutzer in 2002, it said, since ancient times, work has been considered a burden for individuals to bear. But empirical research on happiness strongly suggests that being unemployed, even when receiving the same income as when employed, depresses people's well-being markedly. And what this means is, even if you don't have to work, there's tremendous value in being able to work. Some other research talked about things such as lottery winners as an example, and that these people that have money that's a major windfall that they then perhaps don't have to work. The research shows that people that win lotteries, that in fact they're happy for a while, but then their happiness decreases. And it returns to whatever their base levels were, meaning that money clearly does not buy happiness. Now of course the lack of money can lead to unhappiness, but money in and of itself will not purchase happiness. Another interesting research finding is that people that do voluntary work, meaning work that they do without being paid for it, report higher life satisfaction than people in general. How great is that? So what I'm suggesting in this is that work can be a source of happiness. And that if we have work that we enjoy, how great is that? And I want that to be the case in my course. I want it to be such that when we have work to do, homework and classwork, that we'll enjoy it and find it to be very fulfilling. Okay, another principle. The principle of stewardship. So I think this is very important at BYU in helping us have good motivation. The Savior taught the parable of the talents. He talked about that people were given talents, 1 5, 1 3, 1 1, or was it 110? I'm sorry, I can't remember. But anyways, this idea that people were given talents, they were giving basically resources, and he encouraged it through this parable that people should make the best of their talents, that they have a responsibility with these talents to improve upon them. And that makes me think about, as in an educational institution, the talents that we're, and opportunities that we're given, the talents of knowledge and learning, and how we have an opportunity and a responsibility to improve upon the learning opportunities that we have. One thing I think about with this is this tuition gap. So I have an undergraduate degree from Brigham Young University, but my master's and PhD are from the University of Virginia. So these are both great schools, BYU and the University of Virginia. In my mind, I consider them to be very comparable schools in terms of academic reputation and quality of learning. Well, let's compare the tuition that's paid at BYU versus the University of Virginia. Now at BYU, they separate tuition between LDS and non-LDS tuition because most of the tuition is, of course, subsidized by church funds. So for LDS tuition, this is from 2017. I'm probably just a little bit higher than this today. I don't know what it is, but from 2017, the annual tuition at BYU was $5,300. And for non-LDS, it was double that, $10,600 per year. At the University of Virginia in 2017, the undergraduate tuition was $13,060. And if you weren't from the state of Virginia, if you weren't a Virginia resident, you would pay $41,722 in tuition per year. Wow, that's a huge gap. So in fact, the difference between a BYU tuition and University of Virginia tuition is a factor of 2.5, meaning significantly greater tuition at the University of Virginia. For graduate tuition, the BYU MBA or graduate tuition is $12,310. If you're a Latter-day Saint, if you're not, then it would be $24,620, which is exactly double. At the University of Virginia, if you are a Virginia resident and you go into their master's programs or their graduate programs, the tuition is $62,800 per year. This is in 2017. If, in fact, you go to the University of Virginia and you are not a Virginia resident, how high is it? Well, it's not much more at $65,800. In other words, it seems like the state of Virginia is not subsidizing the graduate education much at all at the University of Virginia. So this is a gap of 5 times that students at the University of Virginia will pay 5 times the tuition that a graduate student at the University of at BYU would pay. This big gap really represents the sacrifice of others on our behalf. That if BYU charged the cost of providing an education, they would probably be charging tuition in the orders of $60,000 perhaps per year in order to cover the cost of education. But there are many people willing to make sacrifices so that we can have this chance to get a BYU education. So the question is, who is paying for all of this? Well, this is a picture, I think, in Hong Kong of some members of the church in Hong Kong that pay their tithing, I assume. Here's in Russia, some Russian members of the church. Here are some members of the church in Africa. Here are some members of the church in the Philippines. These people all pay tithing. Probably a lot of them would love to go to BYU, but for whatever reason, they don't have the ability or the means to be able to get a BYU education. So they still send their tithing, and we still use that tithing not only to build temples and church houses and such like that, but also to help operate BYU and maintain the facilities that we have and so forth. So this is an important stewardship that we have. I consider this almost a contract, the contract that's emblazoned as we enter into the campus from Cougar Boulevard. It says, Brigham Young University, enter to learn, go forth to serve. So it's a great privilege to enter to learn, but we have this obligation to prepare ourselves and go forth to serve. So when I think about that, I think we have to really do the best that we can with the resources that we're given, with the time that we have, the facilities that we have, and other resources that we have, to do the best to prepare ourselves to serve in the best way possible, to fulfill this stewardship that we're given. Let me make a few comments about roles and relationships here. This is an interesting thing. In my class on customer relationship management, we spend a lot of time talking about these relationships, where they come from, how we build them, the value of the relationships, and so forth. So let me draw a little bit of an analogy here first. It's a football analogy, looking at coaches and players. Now, the coach on a football team has the responsibility to provide direction, to provide encouragement, to provide some structure in terms of practice and so forth. He meets with the players and gives them direction and encouragement and helps them to understand what each of their roles are. The roles of the players are actually to run the plays. They actually do the work. Now, the coach doesn't actually run the plays. I mean, some days you see the coach out there and you think, oh, is he going to run out there and grab the ball and run with it or something like that? No, that never happens. The players have that responsibility. So in this analogy, I kind of view this as co-production. And we'll talk about a lot of this in my CRM course. This idea of co-production, of working together with different roles and relationships for a more productive, higher value production and relationships. So we think about co-production is that we have to work together. The coach isn't doing all the work. The players aren't doing all the work, but we work together in fulfilling our roles. So in a classroom setting, we have instructors and we have students. The instructor's responsibility, as I see it, is to provide an environment for learning, to provide resources and direction and structure that will help the students understand a course of study that will be logical and will make sense and fit together. The instructor meets with the students and helps communicate some of that information with the students. In some cases, it may not be the most interesting. We instructors do the best that we can, but sometimes it doesn't go as well as we would hope. We try it again. The student's responsibility is really to engage and to take this information and these resources and to, through the process of co-production, to help improve the learning and opportunities, future opportunities for service. So I think this is important that we understand the co-production relationship. The instructors prepare meaningful material, which I've tried very hard to do and continue to try to do. The students prepare for class. This is absolutely essential, and we meet together for engaging discussions, hopefully. And hopefully we can eliminate some of the monotony that may come from repeated meetings. I'll try to keep it as interesting as possible. Finally, I'd like to share with you a few keys to success and happiness. 5 keys to course success and happiness. And there are certainly others, and this is not rocket science per se. In fact, a lot of these keys you'll say, oh, I already knew that. But I feel like it is important that we can have the opportunity to kind of review this. So, key number 1, take time to study. Now this may seem obvious, but sometimes today's world, we live in kind of a fast food world or a fast everything world. We try to take shortcuts. We try to have things be as fast as possible. And while there's a lot of benefit from efficiency, I can certainly appreciate that, sometimes it's nice to do things a little bit slower, a little bit more methodical. Personally, I'm a big fan of slow food. I like to sit down at the dinner table and take my time. In fact, I've been accused of my kids of being a slow eater, and in some cases being the last one to leave the dinner table here because of being a slow eater. But I think there's sometimes value in taking the time to ponder over what we're doing and to allow ourselves to, both in food consumption as well as in knowledge consumption, to take the time to digest. I've seen students, and maybe even others, in the elevator walking down the hallway with their computers open, reading their assignments for the day. And it always is kind of funny to me that, these computers are portable. I suspect what may be happening in some cases, in fact I had a student at least admit this to me once, is that studying for material that's covered in class in 5 minutes, it's best not to study right immediately before class. It's usually better to study sometime in advance before that, so we're not as rushed with this. I would like to pause now for a word from our sponsor. I'm going to have to do a slight shift to the video here in order for this to work, so give me just a break here. And on to this pause.
Hello, scholars. Look at your grades. Now look at mine. Now back at your grades. Now back to mine. Sadly, they're not like mine. But if you stopped studying in a cave and started studying like me, they could be like mine. Look at your shirt. Now back at mine. Look down, back up. Where are you? You're in the library with the man your grades could be like. Did you know that 8 out of 5 dentists say that studying in the library is 6 bajillion times more effective than studying in your shower? Close your eyes. Now open your eyes. Where are you? You're in a beautifully quiet place where you can study. Look at your hand. Now back to me. I have it. It's a laptop with access to bucket loads of library databases. Look again. The laptop is now a celestial sandwich here in the snack zone. Anything is possible when you're in the library. I'm on a cart. Yeah!
All right, so key number 2, balance your study schedule. Okay, sometimes we don't have the balance that we need. We feel like we're kind of cramming for things. We're up late at night. Sometimes throughout the semester we find that we may spend a lot of time studying, for example, right before exams and such like that. And then because we're so exhausted, we don't study for a while and we kind of put it off and procrastinate that. So it becomes peaks and valleys in terms of our study schedules. That sometimes reminds me of people that are in food eating contests where you're trying to cram as much in as you can at a given time, and I think the result of that can only be some form of indigestion problems. I actually will try my very best in this course to help the course load be level and smooth, and one way that I try to do that is by providing you with structured activities that we do week after week. We have readings that are very consistent week to week. We have assignments that are very consistent week to week, and so forth. So if you study the schedule, and this is not the schedule for my course, it's just one I found on the internet, but if you look at the schedule and plan out your study for the semester, you'll be able to have a more balanced study schedule and it'll be less harrowing and arduous right before exams and so forth. Key number 3, prepare before class, but not moments before. And I've mentioned this before, is that sometimes we wait until the moment of crisis, and we need that motivation of some crisis to get us going here. It reminds me of the pandemic that we've suffered in 2020, and at the start of 2020 it was pretty amazing. This is back in maybe March and April of 2020, where people were panicking about all types of things, that they hadn't really prepared themselves for a pandemic, and understandably people didn't anticipate this. I think about things like, this is a Costco picture here, and they'd have these signs that say, we're currently out of toilet paper and water, we apologize for the inconvenience. So what do people do when they have a crisis like this? Well, this guy right here, what did he do? They're out of toilet paper, they're out of water. Well, he got some couple big massive things of paper towels, and he got a triple pack of Q-tips. Not 100% sure what he's going to do with all those paper towels and all those Q-tips, but he'll be prepared for something. So prepare before class. Don't wait until the moment of crisis. Tip number 4, pay attention in class. Again, not rocket science. It should be obvious. Instructors provide information to us, and class time is important because during class time, we dig deeper into important topics of the course. So if you could do your best to pay attention in class and avoid distractions, one way to do this is to take notes. So I do notice in class sometimes students get on their phones, and sometimes they're looking up something related to class, but other times it's very clear they're doing something else and they're distracted from those types of things. And so I highly discourage you from allowing things such as electronic devices or others to be a distraction in class. Remember that professors lead a class discussion, and they also are the ones that write the exams. So when I'm in class, I already have ideas about things that I might put on the exam, or as I prepare exams, I thought I may be thinking about stuff that we particularly emphasized in class. So it's important to focus on both topics. So as you pay attention in class, it will help you in preparing for exams as well. So here's one of our great professors here at BYU, and you can see these students. Most of them are paying attention. I'm not going to point out any particular students here, but sometimes people like to sit up on the sky deck or far back from class because it's easier to not pay attention. Always try to treat it as though you were sitting on the front row. Even if you do have to sit in the back of the class because of whatever reason, because of the time you arrive or social distancing or whatever, if you do have to sit farther back, please try to treat it as though you're on the front row so that you can be engaged, pay attention in class, and you get more out of it and it'll be more enjoyable for you. Finally, key number 5, I would like you to take the opportunity to ask questions. There's a reason why we are synchronous in our learning, meaning we show up and we learn together at the same time during our class sessions. And there's a reason why we're co-located, meaning we're located in the same space. There's a great cost to that, to being synchronous and co-located, things that we'll talk about in class. So you need to ask thoughtful questions if you can. We don't get any questions for simple airtime, just for, asking some random question just to be asking a question. But ask thoughtful questions, and I find that sometimes one very insightful question can lead to tremendous discussion that we otherwise might miss. I was going to highlight a person here on the left side of this video that's turned around facing the wrong direction. I think he's maybe a conscientious dissenter that doesn't want to answer any questions. And there may be some days where you just don't want to ask any questions, you're not prepared for it, or maybe you're stressed out because of something. Well, on those particular days, take a bye on that. But try throughout the semester, or maybe even on a weekly basis, try your best to be able to think of questions that you might ask as the opportunity arises so you can stay more engaged in class. Because thoughtful questions are an important part of the learning process. So, in summary, these points are: take time to study, balance your study schedule, prepare before class, pay attention in class, and ask questions. Again, this is not rocket science, but some basics and fundamentals. But if we can master these, they will be a great blessing to us in our education process. We'll get more value out of our learning, have more enjoyment in the process, and we will be victorious as we finish the semester, doing well in the course, preparing ourselves for our future service. I am so much looking forward to meeting with you during this semester in class and having an engaging experience together as we seek to fulfill our tremendous stewardship and opportunity to gain a BYU education. See you in class.